Let's be honest, most advice on how to make a woman miss you feels outdated, overly complicated, and frankly exhausting. But what if the key isn't about trying harder or doing more? What if it's about tapping into a few simple, surprising habits that naturally make her think about you, even when you're not around? In this video, we're diving into powerful, yet overlooked strategies that create a lasting impression. These aren't tricks. They're timeless principles that work effortlessly when done right. By the end, you'll understand exactly how to leave her wondering, why can't I stop thinking about him? Let's get started. No. 1. Confidence in solitude. A man who thrives in his own company has an almost magnetic effect on women. You're not chasing after her for constant validation. You're not desperately seeking her attention. And you're not filling every moment with noise just to avoid being alone. Instead, you're calm, collected, and genuinely at peace with yourself. That kind of confidence doesn't just attract attention. It commands it. When a woman sees that you're content in your own space, living your life with purpose, it sparks curiosity. She starts to wonder, why doesn't he need anyone else's approval? What makes him so secure in who he is? And that curiosity, my friend, can be more powerful than words. She admires your independence because it shows her that you're not just surviving. You're thriving. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You're already whole. Think about it through the lens of Stoicism. A Stoic man discovers immense strength in solitude, understanding that standing alone with integrity is far more honorable than seeking validation through shallow attention. As Epictetus wisely said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. When you internalize this truth, you begin to carry yourself with an unshakable sense of self-respect. This isn't just about withdrawing from the world. It's about mastering the art of being complete within yourself. And let me tell you, women notice this. They sense your inner calm, your refusal to be rattled by the need for constant approval, and they're drawn to it. Why? Because a man who doesn't rely on others to define his worth exudes a rare and magnetic confidence. Picture this. You've spent your week diving into your passions, working out, mastering a new skill, or just enjoying the peace of a quiet evening. You're not texting her constantly. You're not checking in obsessively. When she reaches out, she realizes she's talking to a man who values his time and energy. That's a rare find in today's world. And she feels it. She misses you. Not because you're playing games, but because your presence isn't something she can take for granted. You see, when you're comfortable being alone, it shifts the dynamic. You're no longer dependent on her reactions to feel good about yourself. Instead, you're showing her that your life is rich and fulfilling with or without her. And the beautiful irony is, that's exactly what makes her want to be a part of it. She thinks about you when you're not there, because your self-sufficiency creates space for mystery and respect. So start with this principle today. Enjoy your own company. Build a life that you're proud of, one that doesn't rely on anyone else for validation. When you embody this Stoic mindset, you won't just be the man she misses. You'll be the man she admires. No to mastering the pawns. In today's fast-paced world, where everyone seems to react in an instant, there's immense power in pausing. Yes, the man who pauses before speaking or acting holds an almost magnetic appeal. Why? Because that moment of stillness, that deliberate choice not to react, immediately speaks volumes about your character. Picture this: you're in a conversation, maybe even a heated discussion. Most people rush to fill the silence, blurting out their thoughts without much consideration. But you take a breath, you take a moment. You choose your words carefully. That pause might seem small, but to her it speaks of thoughtfulness. It shows you're not just reacting impulsively, you're reflecting. You're someone who values the power of control, of choosing the right action at the right time. The Stoics taught that we can't control the world or how others act, but we can control ourselves. Our responses, our emotions, our thoughts. By pausing, you're demonstrating mastery over yourself. You're showing that you're not a man who's swayed by every external force or provocation, and that calm, that emotional stability, it's rare. It's attractive, it makes her curious. What is it about you that allows you to remain composed when others crumble? What's behind that calm exterior? Think about how this plays out in relationships. Maybe she's upset, testing your patience, or trying to get a rise out of you. Instead of taking the bait, you remain grounded. You don't lash out. You don't withdraw, you simply are. That presence, that ability to stand firm and think clearly, creates a contrast she can't ignore. And when you're not there, it's that steadiness she misses. She missed the feeling of being around someone who doesn't just react to the world, but carefully chooses how to move through it. So the next time you feel the urge to immediately react, take a step back, breathe, pause. Not only will this give you clarity, but it will also leave her with something to think about, something to miss. Your calm demeanor, your depth, and your ability to stay grounded will set you apart from the crowd. It's not about playing games. It's about embodying a level of emotional maturity that's becoming increasingly rare. And trust me, that's the kind of thing she notice and remember long after you've left the room. Now let's take a moment to reflect on this idea of mastering the pause. How often do we rush to respond, to react, to fill the silence? Yet isn't it in those quiet moments of pause that we truly show who we are? I want you to think back to a time when you held your ground, when you chose reflection over reaction. How did it change the dynamic of that situation? Share your experience in the comments below. Or if this is a concept you're ready to embrace, just type 1. Choose the pawns. Let's inspire each other to cultivate this rare and powerful skill together. No. 3. Consistency in values. When your actions consistently align with your principles, you become more than just someone she knows. You become someone she trusts. In a world where people often say one thing and do another, being someone who stays true to his word is rare. It's the kind of quality that doesn't just catch her attention. It earns her respect, and here's the key. Respect is what leads to connection. Respect is what makes her think about you when you're not there. Let's say you've always told her that honesty is important to you. Over time, she starts to notice that you're not just saying it. You're living it. Whether it's owning up to your mistakes, being straightforward about your feelings, or simply following through on your promises, every little moment reinforces that you mean what you say. Even in the quiet moments when you're not with her, she reflects on that consistency. She sees you as someone solid, someone dependable. And that's the kind of impression that lingers. A Stoic doesn't chase external validation. He acts in line with his values because it's the right thing to do, not because he's trying to impress anyone. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." This principle of unwavering integrity doesn't just build your own character, it leaves a lasting impact on those around you. A woman can't help but admire someone who is grounded in his beliefs and unshaken by fleeting emotions or external pressures. And here's the surprising part. Consistency doesn't just make her respect you. It makes her miss you. Why? Because people are drawn to what feels rare and secure. In a chaotic world, someone who is steady and true becomes a source of calm and certainty. When you're not around, she finds herself wondering about you, reflecting on the way you carry yourself, and missing the stability you bring. This isn't about perfection. You don't have to be flawless, but you do need to be intentional. Show her through your actions that your principles aren't just words. They're who you are. It's not flashy. It's not loud, but it's the kind of thing that sticks. And when you live this way, it's not just her respect and admiration you earn. It's a connection that runs deeper than words can describe. So if you want to leave a lasting impression, start by being consistent, true to your principles, and unshakable in your integrity. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes her miss you. No for silent but meaningful gestures. Sometimes it's not the grand gestures or dramatic declarations of love that leave the deepest impression, but the quiet, subtle acts of thoughtfulness that linger in her mind. Think about those moments when she's caught off guard by your kindness, like helping her with something she didn't even realize she needed help with, or remembering a small detail she casually mentioned weeks ago. It's those simple, understated actions that show her you're genuinely paying attention, that you value her in ways words often can't express. For example, she's having a stressful day, juggling work and personal obligations. Without her asking, you pick up her favorite coffee or send her a quick message, letting her know you're thinking of her. These aren't grand overtures, but they speak volumes because they're rooted in genuine care. You're not doing these things for validation or a pat on the back. You're doing them because you value her, and that quiet consistency is what sets you apart. A Stoic would approach this with a deep sense of purpose. Marcus Aurelius reminds us to be good for the sake of being good. When your actions come from a place of authenticity and integrity, they resonate on a deeper level. You're not trying to impress her or seek applause. You're simply doing what feels right. This quiet confidence and selflessness create a powerful emotional connection because she sees that your kindness comes without strings attached. Over time, it's these little gestures that stay with her. They make her pause and reflect, especially in moments when you're not around. She thinks about the way you made her feel safe, valued, and understood. And that's when she starts to miss you. Not because of what you said or did in a big, flashy way, but because of the quiet, thoughtful moments that showed her your character. So remember, it's not about trying to impress her. It's about being present, paying attention, and acting with genuine care. The things that stick in her mind aren't the big shows of affection, but the small, intentional acts that reflect who you truly are. What are your thoughts on this idea of silent but meaningful gestures? Have you experienced a moment when a small, thoughtful act left a lasting impact on you? Or have you been the one to create such a moment for someone else? Leave a comment sharing your experiences, ideas, or even challenges in expressing this kind of quiet thoughtfulness, or if you'd prefer, simply type small acts, big impact. Let's keep the conversation going. No. 5. Growth without her presence. One of the most surprising ways to make a woman miss you isn't about saying the right words or playing hard to get. It's about showing her through your actions, not your words, that you're growing in her absence. This goes far beyond superficial gestures. It's about real, undeniable growth that not only captures her attention, but also reignites her admiration for you. Consider this: you've started advancing in your career, taking on new responsibilities, or maybe even stepping into a leadership role. You're not doing it to impress her or anyone else. You're doing it for yourself. Or perhaps you've decided to pick up a new skill, learning a language, mastering an instrument, or diving into a passion project that sets your soul on fire. Maybe you're hitting the gym consistently, transforming your health and fitness in a way that even you didn't think was possible. When she sees these changes, when she notices you thriving and evolving, something shifts. She starts to wonder, what's gotten into him? How is he doing all of this? That curiosity turns into admiration, and then comes the inevitable pull. She starts to miss the person you're becoming. She's no longer looking back at the old you. Instead, she's captivated by the man you're becoming without her. The beauty of this mindset is that it shifts the power dynamic. Instead of chasing her, you're investing in yourself. You're building a life so full, so rich with growth and purpose, that anyone observing it, her included, can't help but take notice. This isn't arrogance, it's quiet confidence. It's living with intention and letting your actions speak louder than any words ever could. Think of it like planting a garden. When you nurture it, when you focus on the soil, the water, and the sunlight, it blooms effortlessly. Your life is the same. When you focus on growth, on becoming the best version of yourself, the results speak for themselves. She sees the effort, the transformation, the progress, and it naturally draws her in. And here's the most important part: whether she comes back or not, you'll have gained something far more valuable: your own self-respect, your own growth, your own peace of mind. The Stoics taught us that true happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances. It comes from within. By focusing on your growth, you create a life of fulfillment, and that fulfillment is magnetic. It's impossible to ignore. So today, take a moment to ask yourself, what's one area of my life I can start improving? Is it my health, my career, my passions? Start there. Commit to it, and let your actions quietly make the statement, I'm becoming better every day. Because when she sees that, when she realizes you're not just moving on, but moving up, that's when she starts to miss you. And you'll already be so far ahead, focused on your journey, that her reaction will simply be a bonus to the incredible life you're building. Isn't that the kind of life worth striving for? No. 6. Unshakable calm in chaos. Life throws chaos at you. Challenges arise. Emotions run high, and the world feels like it's spinning out of control. It's in these moments, the ones where most people crumble under the weight of stress, that your composure becomes your greatest asset. Staying calm and composed during difficult situations isn't just about holding it together for yourself. It's a powerful signal to the people around you, especially her. When she sees you remaining steady, grounded, and in control, even when life feels unstable, it speaks volumes about your emotional maturity. Women notice these things. Why? Because it's rare. The ability to stay composed under pressure isn't just attractive, it's comforting. It shows her that you're someone she can lean on, someone who won't panic when the going gets tough. And here's the kicker: she misses that when you're not around. When a woman reflects on the time she spent with you, she won't just remember the fun or the laughs. She remembers how you made her feel during the tough times. Did you bring calm to the storm? Were you a source of stability when things felt like they were falling apart? If you were, that memory will stick with her. She thinks about how your presence made everything feel manageable, and she misses it deeply. Let's say she's had a rough day. Her work is overwhelming, or she's dealing with personal struggles. You don't rush to fix everything. Instead, you listen. You stay calm, offer a few thoughtful words, and just let her know you're there in that moment. You're not just another voice in the chaos. You're a steady hand, a quiet reassurance. She might not say it outright, but she feels it, and when you're not there, that absence will be felt even more strongly. This ties perfectly into Stoicism, which teaches us to focus on what we can control and let go of the rest. Your ability to stay calm no matter what's happening is a reflection of this philosophy in action. You're not trying to control the uncontrollable. Instead, you're mastering yourself, your emotions, and your reactions. That's a trait that not only sets you apart, but leaves a lasting impression. So if you want to know the one surprising thing that makes any woman miss you, it's this: be the person who brings peace in a world full of chaos. Show her that you're the kind of man who can weather any storm with grace and strength. Trust me. She notices, and she won't forget it. When you're gone, that sense of calm and stability you provided will linger in her mind, making her miss you in ways she didn't even expect. If you've made it this far, it's clear you're committed to understanding the power of unshakable calm and how it resonates deeply with those around you. Now take a moment to reflect. Have you been the calm in someone else's storm? How do you stay composed when chaos strikes? We'd love to hear your thoughts or stories in the comments. If you're not sure what to say, simply type "grace under pressure." Let's inspire one another to embody the kind of stability that leaves a lasting impact. No. 7. A life full of purpose. When a man knows where he's going in life, when his vision is sharp and his determination unshakable, it creates an energy that's magnetic. She can't help but notice why. Because a purpose-driven man is irresistible. Think about it. A man with a purpose is someone who commands respect, not just from others but from himself. He walks through life with intent, not aimlessly wandering, not getting lost in trivial distractions. He knows what he's building, what he's working toward, and this focus is inspiring. Imagine you're climbing a mountain, not just any mountain, but one that represents your dreams, your ambitions, your life's work. She sees that climb, the effort, the grit, and suddenly, she remembers why she was drawn to you in the first place. It's not just about the destination. It's the way you carry yourself on the journey. That drive, that ambition makes her want to be part of your story. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoics, once said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." And being a good man isn't just about your character. It's about your actions, your goals, and your refusal to settle for mediocrity. When you embody this mindset, you naturally set yourself apart. You're not chasing after anyone's approval because your energy is focused on what truly matters, your mission. And let me tell you, that kind of focus is unforgettable. Picture this: you're working on your passion. Maybe it's your career, a creative project, or building a healthier, stronger version of yourself. You're in the zone, completely aligned with your purpose. And she notices the fire in your eyes. Even if you're apart, even if she's not right there with you, she feels your absence like an echo of everything you stand for. That's the surprising part. Your purpose speaks louder than any words you could say, or any text you could send. It's the invisible pull that makes her think, "I don't want to be left out of this." So if you've been wondering what makes a woman truly miss you, here's your answer. It's not about pretending you're too busy or trying to act indifferent. It's about actually being busy. Busy building the life you're proud of. The kind of life that makes her stop and think, wow, I don't just miss him. I miss being part of his incredible journey. That's the power of purpose. It's not just irresistible. It's unforgettable. Remember, when you live with intent, you're not just improving your own life, you're inspiring others to rise to your level. That's the kind of man she can't stop thinking about. So go after those goals, not for her, but for you. The rest will fall into place. No, wait. Selective attention. Let's talk about something that might seem counterintuitive but is incredibly powerful. When it comes to relationships, balance specifically. The balance between giving a woman your attention and holding back just enough to keep her intrigued. This one surprising thing, mastering moderation can make any woman miss you. Let me explain why. Imagine this. You're getting to know someone, and they're showering you with attention non-stop. At first it feels good, even flattering. But over time it can start to feel overwhelming, maybe even predictable. The mystery is gone, and with it some of the excitement. Now think about the opposite. Someone who is too distant, barely engaging or showing any interest. That feels dismissive, like they don't care at all. Neither extreme is appealing, right? Here's where the Stoic principle of moderation comes in. A Stoic understands the value of restraint, of finding the balance between too much and too little. It's about being present in the moment, but not overindulging. When you give her just enough attention to show her she's important, but not so much that it becomes overwhelming or loses its meaning, something magical happens. She feels valued, but she's also left wanting more. She begins to think about you when you're not there, wondering what you're doing or when she hears from you next. That space you create becomes the seed of longing. Suppose you're texting her. Instead of responding immediately every single time or sending multiple messages in a row, take a moment, craft thoughtful replies. But don't be glued to your phone when you're with her. Be fully engaged, ask her questions. Listen to her answers and show her you're genuinely interested. But don't stay on for hours, trying to fill every silence. Leave on a high note. That pause, that moment when you step back, gives her the space to reflect on how much she enjoys your company and makes her miss it when it's not there. This approach isn't about playing games or withholding affection. It's about showing her respect and confidence. A Stoic doesn't chase validation or overcompensate for insecurity. Instead, they act with intention, knowing that their value isn't tied to constant affirmation from someone else. When you embody this mindset, you become intriguing. You exude a quiet strength, the kind that draws people in naturally without effort. So the next time you're interacting with someone you care about, think about balance. Are you giving her enough attention to make her feel special, but not so much that it loses its impact? Remember, it's the moments of pause, the intentional restraint, that creates space for her to miss you. By practicing moderation, you're not only showing her your value, but also teaching her to appreciate the moments she shares with you. That's the kind of connection that lasts, the kind that keeps her coming back for more. No, 9 subtle displays of strength. Strength isn't about dominance. It's about being dependable when it truly matters. Think about this for a moment. What really stands out in someone's character? Is it the person who constantly talks about how strong they are, or the one whose actions quietly prove it, time and time again? The answer is obvious, isn't it? It's the latter. When you embody this kind of strength, you leave an impression that lingers, long after you've walked out of the room. And that's what makes her miss you. Let's talk about what real strength looks like. It's not about flexing your muscles or raising your voice to get attention. It's about showing up, it's about being consistent, dependable and steady. Imagine that she's had a rough day. And instead of giving her a pep talk about how she should stay strong, you're simply there, you listen. You offer calm, quiet reassurance. You're her safe space, her constant. In a chaotic world, that's strength. The Stoics understood this deeply. They often compared true strength to a tree that stands firm during a storm. The wind might bend its branches, the rain might batter its leaves, but its roots are grounded, unshakable. When you're that steady presence, she can't help but notice it. And when it's gone, she feels its absence. She misses the calm you bring, the assurance that no matter how crazy life gets, you'll remain steady. Now, here's the surprising thing about this kind of strength. It's not about doing grand gestures to prove your worth. It's the small, consistent actions that speak louder than words. Maybe it's checking in on her when she least expects it, or remembering the little things that matter to her, like how she takes her coffee or the story behind her favorite song. It's those quiet actions that make her realize she can rely on you, and that's rare. And anything rare is missed deeply when it's not there. When you embody this kind of strength, you're not just another person in her life. You become the person who makes her feel safe, grounded and cared for. You become the one she reflects on when she's alone, the one who stands out because you didn't need to demand her attention. You earned it through your steady presence. That's the power of quiet strength. So if you want to make her miss you, start by grounding yourself in this principle. Don't aim to impress her with dominance or bravado. Instead, let your actions speak for you. Be the steady tree in her storm, the calm she craves when life gets overwhelming. Trust me when you do this. She not only notice but also feel your absence in a way that stays with her. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes her miss you. No. 10. Respect for her autonomy. Let me tell you something most men overlook, but is incredibly powerful. Respecting a woman's space and her decisions. It might seem simple, almost too straightforward. But this one act speaks volumes about your maturity and emotional intelligence. When you give her the room to be herself, without trying to impose your will or control her choices, you send a message that you trust her, that you see her as an equal. And trust me, that's rare. It's something she noticed, something she valued deeply. And yes, it's something she miss. Think about it. How often do people cling to relationships, trying to hold on tighter when they feel the connection slipping? It's human nature, but it's also counterproductive. The more you try to control someone, the more they pull away. On the other hand, when you step back and respect her independence, you're telling her, I see you as a whole person, capable of making your own decisions, and I'm secure enough in myself to let you do that. That level of confidence and self-assuredness is magnetic. It's what sets you apart from the crowd. Now, this isn't about trying to manipulate her feelings. This is about embodying a principle of Stoicism, respecting the freedom and autonomy of others. A Stoic understands that you can't control another person, only your reaction to them. When you let go of the need to possess or control, you're free to focus on what truly matters, building a connection based on mutual respect and understanding. Let me share an example. Imagine you and this woman have been spending a lot of time together, but recently she seems a bit distant. Most guys would panic and start texting her constantly, asking if she's okay or if they did something wrong. But instead of falling into that trap, you decide to respect her space. You trust that she has her own reasons, and you don't take it personally. You use that time to focus on yourself, maybe hitting the gym, pursuing your hobbies, or simply reflecting on your own growth. What happens next? She notices. She sees that you're not like everyone else, desperate for validation or trying to chase her down. She starts to miss the calm, confident energy you bring into her life. She begins to realize that your presence is not about control or neediness, but about complementing her independence. That realization can make her think about you in ways she didn't expect. When you respect her space, you're not just giving her freedom, you're giving her a gift, an example of what a healthy relationship looks like. And that's something she won't easily forget. A woman will miss a man who respects her autonomy, because it's a rare and beautiful quality. It's not about what you say to her. It's about how you make her feel valued, trusted, and free. Remember, the foundation of any strong connection is respect. When you approach relationships with this mindset, you're not only embracing a Stoic principle, but also showing her a kind of maturity that will leave a lasting impression. As we come to the end of this video, let's take a moment to reflect on the powerful lessons we've uncovered. The truth is, creating a connection that lasts isn't about tricks or manipulation. It's about embracing principles that help you grow as an individual and naturally draw others toward you. When you live with purpose, confidence, and emotional intelligence, you don't just make her miss you. You become the kind of person she admires and respects, even when you're not around. Think about the strategies we've discussed. Living a life she wants to be part of isn't just about impressing her. It's about creating a fulfilling, meaningful existence for yourself. Mastering the pause, staying calm in chaos, and showing strength through consistency are habits that not only make you stand out, but also bring clarity and control to your own life. Respecting her autonomy and valuing your own company create a magnetic energy that speaks louder than words ever could. And the best part, these aren't just strategies for relationships. They're timeless habits that elevate every area of your life. By embodying these principles, you're not just focusing on what you want from someone else. You're building a foundation of self-respect, purpose, and emotional stability. That's what creates real lasting impressions. And when she thinks about you, it won't be because of what you said or did in a single moment. It'll be because of the way you carried yourself. Over time, it'll be the sense of calm, strength, and respect you brought to her life. That's the kind of impact that stays with someone, and that's what sets you apart. Now I want you to take a moment to think about how you can apply these principles starting today. What's one area of your life you can start improving? What's one action you can take to build a richer, more fulfilling existence? When you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, everything else will naturally fall into place. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like it. Your support helps spread this message to more people. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What's one principle you'll start applying today? Drop your insights in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to check out the recommended videos on screen. They'll dive even deeper into topics that will help you grow in relationships and beyond. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.